There's businesses that all you're doing is you're just shoveling more debt. You're just making it worse for them.
Welcome to the NZ Guide to Financial Freedom podcast. It's run by the co-founders of a free online learning platform called moneyskills.co.nz, and it has the sole mission of providing every New Zealander the opportunity to live a more fulfilling life. So let's kick into it. So we're here with Doug, mate. We've got the business manager, ex-business manager for Kiwi Bank, and you would help clients between $1 and $5 million, and it was just you. They can do everything, you know, the one number, one man.
Oh yes, that's within reason. I mean, of course, I can't spend all day trying to change people's addresses and change email addresses and phone numbers.
There's enough hours, surely. You can do a 200-hour work week.
Well, I could, but I get paid for 40, and I've got to have a life out of work.
Fair. What was that like? Like what started you? Like you're 10 years old, you're playing with trucks, and you saw a banker walk past, and you're like, oh, well, this guy it's changed my family's life.
I wish it was that, actually. No, it was totally that. Actually, I know I look really young. The wrinkles don't give it away. But yeah, I just started a couple of months before the old share market crash in 87. And God, I shouldn't have bought those Judge shares because they were just a waste of toilet paper. For those people that can remember that name.
Judge shares, okay. Yeah.
Actually, no, I was supposed to be an accountant. I was starting to work for the social welfare department in their accounting department, and started to go to AUT and started doing accounting 101. But I got a bit bored of that. So in the end, I was given somebody's name down at the local Westpac. Walked down, had an interview. In those days, I think it was more that managers employed on gut feel.
Which seem nice. They're gone.
Yeah. Oh, nowadays it's how many interviews, how many bloody tests you got to do, and yeah, it's. But anyway, yeah. So I got employed there, and in those days, you sort of had that's when you had the microfiche in the branch, and the checks were delivered to the branch, and customers would come up and say, "I want to photocopy this check," and you'd go hunting and try and look for it, but. Yeah, but over the last 20 years, mainly has been my forte in being in business banking.
Yeah.
Because I've always quite enjoyed working with business customers, because you actually end up having two conversations. You got one on the business and what their dreams and goals are for them, or for the business, but then you got a separate one in regards to the husband and wife or partners, in regards to, because it might be totally separate.
Nice save, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Husband and wife.
I know. You've got to get with the times. This old dog is learning new tricks all the time, so yeah. And actually, thinking of that, yeah, it is sort of like that these days. You're sitting there going, okay, is this person your partner? And it's when they say, oh, it's my wife, you go, sweet, cool. I just have to be a bit diplomatic these days because
that's my daughter. Oh crap.
Oh yes.
Just a bit orcs. Yeah, that is challenging. It's like, what is the situation here? Because there are some, like my dad, for example, he lives with his old secretary, and they're just friends.
Yep.
Like you can't make assumptions, but anyway.
No, you can't, because I had an application once for two guys living together. They owned the apartment together. They had their own different jobs, but they also invested in the same companies. So I had to politely actually be direct to the point.
Yeah, are you banging?
to find out whether they were involved, not just business, but on a personal. And the answer was, nah, we're just good friends. And that's just how they saved money by, buying an apartment, and ended up just working together in regards to expanding their own little business empires, because they worked quite well together and gelled. One was operational, one was sales. So it was a perfect match.
Do you see partnerships that work and don't work, and like why? Do you find a trend? Like there's one knows too much and the other doesn't know as much, or like one's more money focused and the other one's a little bit more people focused, or?
No, I can't say I have recently, because a lot of the time now the advice that we give over the last few years has been anywhere as if you're entering a business relationship with people, the best thing is you go down to go and see your local lawyer to get yourself some shareholder agreements, because over the years you've seen shit hit the fan, and you go, well, hey, look, everything's all best endeavours when they first start, but it could be at times when the money starts rolling in, people's goals change. The old goalposts move on the personal or business side differently, and that can have an adverse effect. So the one way to get around that is making sure you've got yourself a watertight sort of shareholders agreement or business agreement. So when there isn't any trouble, it can be sorted.
It's clear cut.
Clear cut.
Our mutual friend, I guess you'd say, Jeffrey Hughes, he always talks about it better to build a fence at the top of the hill and clean the mess up at the bottom.
Exactly, because you don't want to be the one that's falling.
No, you don't want to fall off that cliff, geez.
Because, there's you always think that when, things don't go well, and, I mean, outside of work, for a few years, I used to do budgeting courses. Okay. So you actually used to, through Christians Against Poverty, and through those budgeting courses, the people that you saw were the ones that were in dire straits. And you always found that, most marriages, when breaking up, it's got nothing to do with somebody jumping the fence. It's actually,
financial.
It's finances. It's either an event's happened, or they just weren't set up correctly and didn't talk about it. Because quite easily to have a spender and a saver in the relationship, and when you got two of those, you got a saver and a spender. If they're not talking about it,
gets messy.
It gets messy. If you've got two spenders, well, then they have to have a real conversation.
Yeah. We hand them a expenditure checklist and we're like, okay, this might cause the domestic, but I think it's important you talk about it. It is right. There's polarity in every relationship we find, is where you have someone that's more risk-taking, someone that's more risk-averse, and you have the saver and spender. Not always that clear-cut, but funnily enough, the most worthwhile partnerships are the ones that have that communication as the mediator, but they have the varying perspectives, which I guess helps them adapt to the changes in life, I suppose.
Very true.
You're going to say something? Look like you took.
No, I was trying to think, but nah.
Yeah, cool. Because I was trying to think also if it wasn't thinking.
So I mean, I guess as I've followed your content over the last couple of years, and I really enjoy seeing you chucking out this content, and we all learn from each other, and it's always been a self-help. You learn as you go, because it's only been in the last couple of years that I've what I call getting their sort of job in regards to chucking out content that I think people want to listen to. Yeah, whether it's the right ones or not, you don't really know. It's but it'll be like anything. I don't know about yourself, but when somebody comes up to you and goes, "Oh, you're so and so," you go, "Yep." Oh, I see your content. And I read it and stuff like that, and I go, "Well, thank you," because that's my why. That's why I do it. If one person's, just that one person's read it, actioned it, and taken it on board, then you go, well, that's at times you just don't know why, but you find in the end you go, yep, and I'll keep on going.
Well, pretty much, hey. Sometimes it feels like you're just chucking shit into a black hole. You're like,
correct.
And then you're getting this pushback from friends or business, and they're saying, well, what's the benefit? Like, why are you doing it? And then it's slowly, you're right. That impact you can make on a person's life is crazy. Yep. And you make content once, and it can impact thousands, if not millions, of people.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What was that like? So you're part of this institutional group, and you're like, I'm going to make content. Like, how'd that go down? And how did you start thinking the framework, or how it worked, or did it go well or straight away, or it sucked for 2 years? Or
no, I mean, it's only in the last couple of years through LinkedIn, which is my main. I always tell people that's my main social media. I spend more time on that than I would on Instagram or Facebook, and I still don't really know how to upload a photo or a video onto Instagram.
Fair enough,
bluff my way through it. I have to go to my 16-year-old daughter, who's a lot more on it than I am.
Smart,
and out there. So
who you know, not what you know.
Exactly, and it's free labour, so why not? Hey, look, I got to admit though, under Kiwi Bank is they've allowed me free rein. But I always was certain with that is that's where I built up my personal brand, and with that I've always tried to stay away from politics, because that's very it's at times I've written my comment, posted it, 30 seconds to a minute later, gone back and read it and go, hell no. And it's deleted, but I felt better because it's like that email that you get from a customer and you write it, but you chuck it into the draft box and don't send it. And then the next day you look at it and go, oh, no, I'm in a better space now. I go delete.
Smart. I've learned that mistake myself. Quite often, I'll delete a couple of things just because, that personal brand, like you want it to represent who you are, but then also years from now, like someone could look back at that and think, oh, okay, this person thinks this way. And I don't create that narrative because I got a dark sense of humor and I'm a smart ass and I'm not politically correct at all.
Yes.
So I make these comments and I'm like, that's funny to me, but it's also controversial. So I'm just like, I'm mindful of that. But what is your advice? Well, what have you learned from personal brands since we're on that topic? We'll get into business lending and stuff.
We'll see how it goes. We might want to keep away from that subject.
Sound passionate, mate.
Exactly. Hey, personal brand it's taken me a while to realise, right, that when I was with Westpac, I spent 20 odd years there. And it wasn't until about the 5 or 6 years down the track when you're on the front line, you go, well, I might have a title, but actually I'm just a salesperson.
Yeah.
You're there to sell a product or service that people want. And what I found is when I first started with KiwiBank yonks ago, that it's not a brand that people would go to straight away. So we actually had to do a lot of door knocking. So when you looked at our...
you were door knocking, businessman.
Business, of course.
Good man.
Good man. I mean,
I've done that.
We've done that, yep. So
that's how I got this job.
There you go. So what we used to do with a friend of mine at KiwiBank is you find an area that you liked, industrial area, do a bit of drive around, take photos of companies that you thought, oh yeah, I like their product, I like their service, or it's in an industry that you want to get involved in.
So your qualifier is something you're genuinely interested in.
Yes. So then we'd go back and then you start looking at their website and Googles, and you go into the company's office to see where they might have PPSA registrations and all that sort of stuff. So you sort of kept that info and pulled a bit of a profile.
Can you explain what you used an abbreviation? People.
I did. So yes. So what I mean by GSA is a General Security Agreement for those old dogs like me that used to be called a debenture that finance companies or businesses are lended against, and the PPSR register is like your personal property security register, which is like your mortgages, right? So if a person wants to take a charge over your vehicle or over your business vehicles or company finances or anything like that, it gets registered. So through that, at times, is what we could find out is where they banked. So we just put it in the back of the conversation, and we might bring that up because it just showed we sort of done a bit of research. But a lot of the time we would always say, like if it was Easter, you a few weeks out, you go and buy some goodies, go and visit 4 or 5 people in the area and just door knock and introduce yourselves and say, hey, look, we're from KiwiBank. We just happen to be in the area. And
last week, just like
exactly. You lied through your teeth. I didn't say that. And just open up conversation. And through that, that's when we realised that there's two brands especially for us in the corporate field. You got your corporate brand, which will either open the door or close the door. But if it opened the door, that was cool. But it always sort of boiled down to is people do business with people they want to. If you're ordering something online and it's just click, 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 well, that's really just non-relationship.
Yeah.
But something of a financial sense is, you do your research first because you know that you want to make sure that the person you're dealing with is going to be there in 6 to 12 months or know what they're talking about. So, it's more of, KiwiBank for me in the past was the door opener, but it was me that sealed the deal.
Yeah.
And that's where it's sort of with LinkedIn and stuff, you really got to try and manage that personal branding, from my point of view anyway, because people would go on there and check you out. And if you are putting stuff on there that you go, well, I got my smiley face over here, but over here I'm showing my real self, people don't want to, do business that way.
Fair. So it's consistency is important. What do you see the benefit with the personal brand? It's like, okay, maybe you're going to see this person, they search you up, and then it helps close better, or maybe you have leverage where you opens doors for you that might normally be open. People call you. Like, what happens? What do you find useful?
I find it useful in regards to, I know people put LinkedIn out there as, for me, it used to be the old, that's where I put my CV. So when I started looking, that's all what they really saw. But, so that now it's grown into its own little social network sort of thing. Well, for me, it's just finding that my postings, what I do is sort of my give back. It's going for that, as Glenn Marvin would say, go for the long game, and it's like anything, because even, doesn't matter what you do, at times you might not seal the deal tomorrow. It might be in 3 months. It might not be 6 months. It might be 12 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
But it's that person that's resonated with you, has got on with you, and just find at times is they need that event to happen to when they go, right, now's the time. It's that's what I've found is, at times you were speaking to somebody 12 months to 2 years ago, and you get a call out of the blue and just say, oh, look, we're now looking to this. We've now found now's the time to, to move. Can we speak to you? And you go, yep. Now's the time. Yeah, absolutely. Let's make an appointment or whatever and just get on with it.
Yeah, it's valuable. That's the whole reason why I have varying guests on here. It's like we want a passive investor that just wants their life sorted, but they're not that interested in finance.
Yeah.
So how would you attract that? You wouldn't fucking pump out finance dense content every day, because you're going to attract the wrong kind of people. So you bring on different guests like yourself. Or we just had a child psychologist on, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then when that moment comes, you're first of mind, and it's also a protection against the business, because in the future, you would think most things are commodities, really. You could, then it's just a competition on cost, and then if you don't have scale, then you're not competitive. So if you think about voice searching software, like Google Assist, or what Amazon's doing, they own the search engine, they also own the market. So then when you say, hey, I want a business loan, and you search, hey, Google Assist, can I get a business loan? They'll just choose whoever's on the registry.
Correct.
But if you created a brand and a personal brand, they'll say, hey, can I have, where can I get financial advice from Ryan Melton? So they're actually searching, and it's a hedge against that. Yeah. But what do you look for? Like, how does it, so there's a few businesses might be struggling, or they might need some lending, and how do they optimize the opportunity for themselves? Like, how do they set their business up so they get a better opportunity for lending, or when should they not lend? Or
and that's quite right, because for me is it's always making sure that it's been a fit for purpose, right? Because sometimes out there's businesses that all you're doing is you're just shoveling more debt, you're just making it worse for them. And sometimes you just got to have that conversation to say, well, hey, look, they might have come to you, but I always put my hand on heart to say, well, hey, look, I'm never going to tell you if it's a green light or a red light, and that's it. If it's a red light and so it's been declined, I'm not going to say, oh, the bank's declined it because it might be whatever policy, or we're just not interested in that market. If that's the case, I'd like to always go a step further and say, hey, look, haven't been able to help you now, and the reasons are actually this. But what you can do is, if you do this to, turn those negatives into positives and come back in 12 to 24 months, then that way you'll become more bankable, because you've worked on your business or your finances, you've taken the steps in place to ensure that those things don't happen again, and it's viable, then, go for it. Because I do know that there may well be institutions out there which, all you do is chuck in your names and numbers and get it access to your Xero or MYOB, and in 5 minutes you've got an approval. But, at times it's not looking at the bigger picture, because it wasn't until I was left the bank, Westpac, after 20 years and went for a finance company, that you actually started digging a lot deeper and asking questions, because there's no point giving somebody, you thought these clients of yours must have been doing all okay because they were paying your interest. But it wasn't until you started digging and go, oh, they've got 50 grand of PAY not being paid. They've got GSTs not being paid. Then you go, well, I know where my money's coming from, but on the offside is there's no point giving it more money if they're behind in other areas. Because all you're doing is just digging a black hole for them as a client.
Sure, I'm just going to have to switch the camera over. What would be common reasons for businesses not being bankable? They haven't been secured their debt, they haven't consolidated it, or their company's structured in such a way that it doesn't have a moat or a protection, or it looks like it's susceptible. How does that work?
It's not profitable, or the industry that they've gone in is just so competitive. And it's like anything, that it's a race to the bottom with pricing. If you're sort of entering that and you don't have a point of difference, really if your only entry point is, price, at some stage you're going to lose. Because like you said before, if you've got bigger players that can scale, then you're going to be a loser.
True.
And there's other times where people have, Kiwis. Oh, well, let's put it down to it. Kiwis don't save.
Yeah.
Okay, if we look at it, if it wasn't for KiwiSaver, you'd most probably find that I'd have nothing in my freaking KiwiSaver. I would have ended up spending it most probably.
Yeah.
But at least I can see it, going up, and there's something there for my retirement. But Kiwis don't save in majority, and we love debt.
Yeah.
So that's a good portion of Kiwi businesses when they start are undercapitalised, or don't have any capital whatsoever, and are insolvent on day one. A lot of the time when, looking at company financials, when you're just looking at the company financials, a lot of them, by the time you take away what's actually left, they have negative equity. The larger ones, absolutely, are better because they've got the proper systems in place to ensure that doesn't happen, the support and stuff like that. So if somebody's starting up on day one and they've borrowed money already, they're already backwards.
Yeah.
So it's more of trying to get into a time frame where you can see it quite a lot where people go and buy a business, right? And but they don't actually understand it. Okay, well, I'm buying this business for $500,000. But they bought a business where they don't get their first lot of income for 45 to 60 days. So you sit there going, well, how are you going to pay your wages next week? Because all I've looked at is, I need 500 grand to buy it, and that's it. But you ask them to sit down and go, well, have you got, accountants all lined up? Are you doing cash flow forecasts? Are you doing proper due diligence? And a lot of the time, a good portion of the time, the answer is no. And they're only doing that because the bankers asked them to do, or the finance company. People go and spend $500,000 on a house. They'll go and get themselves a builder's report. They'll get registered valuations. They'll get good, solicitor's advice, and they'll spend a shitload on buying their house for $500,000. But when it comes to buying a business, you're lucky if they're spending 1% to 2%. But when it comes to shit hitting the fan, when it comes to the business, it's not like there's bricks and mortar to sell. So, for me, that's been really on the content, is to get out there and saying, is making people more aware of, if you want to make your banker or financiers or your mortgage advisors or business brokers' lives easier, then, get the ball rolling now to ensure that when it comes time to that you're wanting to do something, you're not causing them to take a lot of Panadol.
Panadol. Yeah, good summation.
Yeah, well, hey, I didn't say whiskey with it, but
Yeah, Panadol.
We'll go with Panadol.
Yeah, good on you. PC.
And PC. And by the way, this broadcast is not funded by any pharmaceutical companies.
Just Panadol. That's good. Jesus. Yeah, I see that. I hear those stories, people buying businesses and thinking that, I've got it all worked out. And effectively, a lot of them don't actually know even what they're buying. They're buying a relationship and not even actually sustaining that relationship in the sense, like you've had, for example, accounting practice.
Yep.
They've got this long-term relationship with these clients, and you've just brought out the owner, and then the owner's gone. What do you actually own?
Yep.
Okay, maybe the systems, yada, yada, yada. So you talked about people spend money on purchasing a house and checking.
Yep.
what would a smart person that's trying to buy a business, what would their due diligence look like, or what should they think about?
Ooh,
I don't know if this is your expertise.
No, well, I wouldn't, but it always goes back to is that, and this is going to be a bit of a pet project of mine, because I did see a couple of years ago, an Aussie mortgage broker had done a monopoly board. But instead of all the streets, it was all the steps of buying a house and the journey, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'd like to do that for people, for businesses, because I looked at it and go, well, the guy, it was quite right and easy steps to follow in regards to going out there and buying your business. But this one was for first home buyers. Unfortunately, my skill set when it comes to that digital stuff is really limited. And I only use the basics on Canva, so trying to do something like a Monopoly board it's going to be really challenging. So, but yeah, I mean, the first thing is that when you are looking to go and buy a business, I always put it down to is go into an area that you've got an interest in or passion, because if you go into something where you've got no interest or passion, but it just seems to be bolting out a lot of money at that time, there comes a time when if it loses interest, you lose interest in that business. Well, the day you lose interest, that business starts going backwards. So you've got to try and find something that you feel passionate about.
Cool. Yeah.
And know that then finding, well, what industry is it in, and then digging to see, well, is that an industry that's going to be around in 5 to 10 years' time? Because, who would have thought a couple of years ago that people would start working, if you tried to ask your boss 1 or 2 years ago, I wanted to work from home for 1 to 2 days a week, I'm thinking that's going to be a conversation that wouldn't have gone down too well.
No. Yeah,
but nowadays, it sort of comes a norm where actually, staff can be productive 1 or 2 days a week, being out of the office or from home or things like that. So it's more of, just being in an industry that is still going to be around. That sort of thing. And then, from there is, I'm always saying is, the one thing where you get real good information is going through business brokers.
Okay.
Because if you've got real decent business brokers, they actually, if they put together a real decent business memorandum package together, that has 50 to 60% of what a bank needs to be able to do a back of the envelope in regards to calculations. And that's something I've learned over the last few years is, somebody might say, I want to borrow some money. I go, that's fine. What's the purpose? Oh, it's this. Okay, well, hey, look, just give me 3 basic set of information. Application form, the financials, and any maybe management accounts, or what are you putting? What skin in the game are you putting into it? And then they forward that information through, and I can spend 10, 15 minutes, do a back of the envelope calculation, which is quite accurate. And if there's a deal there, well, then you ring the client back and say, hey, look, based on the information, I think we better go forward. Because a lot of it is, mainstream banks. We're income lenders. We are not asset lenders. So, banks are looking on the first way out is, how do we get repaid? Then the second one is, well, if we can't get paid, what's our second way out? Where on the flip side, there's going to be finance companies out there that look totally the other way. Is that if the loan doesn't get paid, what asset have we got, and how do we get out of it? So each one's sort of looked at differently. And from an income point of view, that's the worst thing I'd hate to do is ask a customer, giving a prospect or a customer a list as long as your arm of all the information that you want, and then you get it and say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Because you put your foot in their shoes, and they would have spent a long time trying to gather all that information. But if you've got just the basics to go, I think there's a bankable deal here or not, and it's up to them whether they wanted to proceed, you go from there. I'm finding that, these days, we all are time poor.
Yeah, man.
So that's me rambling on.
Oh, it was good, mate. We're income lenders, not asset lenders. I mean, that's a simplistic, concise way of understanding that. Like, who do you talked about using a business broker. Like, how do you find a good one, or do you know any ones that you recommend?
Well, I can, but I'd refer you to my LinkedIn direct messaging to, sort of put that out there.
Okay, yeah. Send a message to Doug if you want to know.
Send message to Doug, yeah.
Because they could be crap by tomorrow, you don't know. Yeah.
Well, who knows? It's but again, it's like anything out there at the moment is businesses, from what I'm hearing, businesses and properties are in the same sort of boat. There's not a lot out there. In regards to listings, Oh,
okay. So the opposite of the property, really.
Well, property, there's not a lot of listings.
Well, everything's being brought, is what I say.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially since last year. Because if people said, "Oh, have you been busy?" I go, "Oh, absolutely." Since August last year, when we came out of the lockdowns, and probably from August, even just people started buying businesses, properties or whatever, and we've been constantly just flat out until around April, and that's when I found I had to tune out and go and take a week down at the old Wanganui River.
Oh, you went?
Because we done the canoeing and done the is it canoeing? Yes, it is canoeing, because I get upset if you say kayaking.
It's like a waka as opposed to like the two hands.
Yes, exactly. So it's the canoeing. And spent the 5 days down there, which was absolutely marvellous. And, just the thing in our household is every time we tick off something on the to-do list in regards to, your goals, the wife puts another 3 things on there. So it'll be like with anything is, with the lockdown that we've had and the borders closed, we travelled overseas every couple of years because it was just a family decision. But this, in the last 6 to 7 months, we've done the great walks in regards to Abel Tasman.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We've done the Milford Track.
Yeah.
We've done the
Queen Charlotte, surely.
Oh no, not yet. But we've done the Wanganui because that was different.
Okay.
And that's on the Great Walks.
Oh, is it?
But I do know that the one thing is A, I don't like canoeing, and B, I don't like camping in a small tent. So there's 2 outcomes of that. But then again, it might not have helped that I capsized twice on the first day.
Yeah, no idea. Then you just wet the whole fucking trip.
Exactly. So when people ask me where my credit cards are or anything like that, or anything with work, I go, oh, it's with my wallet in the bottom of the Wanganui River.
Jeez. So anyone that's fallen on hard times, you could go for a search down the morning. You might want to close those accounts, I think, mate. You're just putting it out there.
Oh, I'm just putting it out there.
Was it next to a particular tree or anything?
Oh, yeah, no, don't worry. I haven't marked it or anything. It's not like X marks a spot and there's hidden treasure.
Okay. All right. Good man. So we always try and obviously this is linked to finance with the business loans, but we try and link it in the sense of what's your version of financial freedom? If you had to put that down. Or what's important about money to you?
What's important about money to me? I always go on that, people at times, so I guess for me it's come a family thing where, hey, look, we've had good disposable incomes, but when our daughter was born, we made a decision to say, hey, look, we're going to use our time with her now. So if that meant going overseas or giving her stuff that I didn't have when I was younger, well, that's where our investment went. Because it's just a lot of those times there's memories that you just can't put a dollar sign on. And hey, look, yeah, most probably could have been mortgage free by now, but then at what sort of holistic cost when looking at it. And because I always go back as some of us come from a generation where mum and dad worked 5 to 7 days a week to sort of get, to put you into that sort of freedom, but you didn't actually spend a lot of time with them. And for me is, I've been in a family situation last year where something sort of happened with my parents majorly, and it's gone from where take a step back and go, yeah, I made the right decision, because these days you just don't know what's going to happen to you. You just don't know if around the corner you're going to get knocked over by that bus, or you might get cancer, or you don't know if you're here today or gone tomorrow. And for me, as long as you're aware that what you're doing and you know the reasons why, then go for it. But if you're one of those households, like say when doing the budgeting courses, and this info's a little bit old, but New Zealand had a tendency that for every dollar going in, $1.10 was going out.
Yeah, it's not.
So and it'll be like on at times when people sort of say, oh, I'm on drawings of $200,000 a year, but you looked at the financials and they're only making 100. You can do the maths. They ain't going to be in business much, for a little while down the track. So for me, it's more of just making sure that people are aware of those sort of things, and for me to have conversations that may not be around finances. They may be around things that go, well, hey, look, if you keep doing what you're doing, you ain't going to have a business. And I've been around for a while, and the structure you got here is not only you're going to lose your business, but you're going to lose the commercial properties or other stuff.
Yeah, creditors. Yeah, on that, because historically what people would use is a family trust as a means to separate what they personally own in the business, but especially relationship property, people are finding loopholes, and a lot of the trusts are actually shams. They're not treating it as separate property. Do you find creditors are finding ways to come after people, or come after might not be the right word, but
no, I can't say I've seen it, but I'm sure it happens in reality.
Okay.
That's where it goes down to is at times there is finance companies and banks and lenders out there where if the wife says no, the wife says no for a reason in regards to that house. So there is other options or alternatives out there. But again, as I said before, way back, is that Kiwis don't really save, so their savings has been through the debt reduction or the appreciation of property. And that's what they use because it's the cheapest format for people to get the loans that they need for it. Sometimes whether all they're doing is really digging a deeper hole for themselves, who knows?
Yeah, well, that's the challenge we face is there's no better investment than paying down debt.
Yep.
We recommend managed funds in KiwiSaver just because you had the flexibility to get it when you need it and you're not leveraging debt. But yeah, it's 60 to 70% of people over the age of 65, I think in 2013, had an extra $100 a week in the pocket on top of super. And super's fucking peanuts. 20 grand after tax for an individual, 30 grand, 32 grand for a couple. But on a more wholesome note, you've started a new venture and you're going out still in the business. Can you tell us about it and how we'll find you?
No, I can. So recently there's been sort of changes in my life, and it's sort of made me be aware that the things that I wanted. I got a 16-year-old. She finishes school in a year and a half, for that next year and a half, I just want to be around because I know when they bugger off to. It's hard enough now getting, besides being an Uber driver and a zip zapper with a credit card, that, finding time to sit down and just chilling out with them, because they get to a certain point where they just, gone. They're gone, or their friends are more important than you are. So she wants to go to university, so it's more of just sort of being there around there. And as I mentioned about my parents, I've got to step up. In regards to, if they need somebody to do stuff for them to make myself available. And I found that the only way I could really do that was to just go out on my own.
Yeah.
So I'm actually proud to announce that I'm joining Gareth Dobson and Paul from Insol, and joining them as a business lending specialist and mortgages, sort of specialising more in using what I've learnt over the last 20 years dealing with business owners. So, joining them, because it was quite funny is that a couple of weeks ago where it was a nice fine day and it was going down to see my parents. So we're driving down to the Coromandel, go to there's a place called the Corner Store, which is out in the Hauraki Plains, and a little cafe and stuff. It's on the corner by a roundabout before you go to either you want to go to Rotorua or go to the Coromandels.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to be different. So I got out the old nice and fine, go outside, get the old video on, and tell them, right, guys, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news, I've made up my mind.
Yeah.
The bad news, I'm bloody joining you guys. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, right.
And it's again, point of difference for everything you do, and that's decided. Well, hey, look, the stars are aligned in regards to all my sort of education and training, because as you'll be aware, man, the regulations have changed over the last few years.
Somewhat. Yeah.
And, here I was going down the old training for an AFA sort of stuff and got my wealth, and that's where I thought it was going to be, but didn't pan out that way. And then for some reason I done that paper, and then for some reason I did that paper, and then it sort of be this year, or the stars aligned to say, now's the time to go out on your own.
Fair.
So, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, authorized financial advisor, that's what AFA stands for, by the way. Just keep people wondering.
Yes.
But now as we wrap this up, what is an ideal client? Like, someone's got a particular problem, they should talk to you because of this, and then how do they talk to you?
Hey, look, at the moment, the best bet is to check me up on LinkedIn. I'm quite, there's a fair bit of content out there. Prolific, one would say. Either that or look up LinkedIn Local North Shore. That's the other umbrella. I sort of doing networking events, and something I feel a bit passionate about. Or not more than a bit. I feel passionate about.
Good set.
Because it's all about giving back. And again, I always felt maybe it's just old school. Us humans, we were built for community, not being stuck in our little homes and not getting out and about. So that's what I just like to, get people together to a non-selling event where we can, if you build up a relationship over time, business follows.
Yeah, sure. Wise words. And on that note, we've got obviously the audio editor, nzaudioeditors.com, because editing it ourselves is fucking... You've met him, Jordan. It's annoying.
Yep. I wouldn't try it.
Yeah, wise words. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. You done well. First ever podcast.
Yes, I'm no longer a virgin podcaster.
Yes, we took his cherry. All right, guys. On that note, thanks for coming, mate.
Okay, see ya.